Hello everybody. This originally started out as a video of me talking about the Bungieverse at large, but the more I dug, the more I realized just how much Destiny and Marathon are connected. There's a post on r/Destiny lore that helped me out a lot with this, as well as the Marathon story page too. The links to those will be in the description. Now, I want to explain what I mean when I say they're in the same universe. I mean, it can't be true, Destiny has no mention of a Yarrow or the Four or any of that. Plus, the timelines don't match. It's impossible. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they are in the same universe, but in separate timelines. To get the most obvious one out of the way first, we've got the Mida multi-tool. Zavala. A waste of time as always. I won't confiscate the Red Death engrams, I won't roll back the Suros Crucible firmware to its original, preposterously inflated state, and I won't conduct any more forensic inquiries like this. My Red Jacks unlocked your Midas weapons logs. Simple enough once we use the rifle's own electronic warfare tools. The rifle was designed by a primitive AI and manufactured for use by a revolutionary government named Mida. Mars is damnably arid, perhaps. Guerrilla War suits these versatile weapons. But Rahul insists his records never hinted at a rebel group named Mida. According to the rifle's cached messages, Mida's brief reign killed a full 10% of the Martian people. I gave Lakshmi the weapon for her take, but she insinuates it came from another timeline, perhaps through Golden Age experiments. That means it's outside your jurisdiction to ban. Shax. So that's it. We got confirmation that Marathon exists in an alternate timeline to Destiny. Video over, right? Well, there's still a lot more to talk about. In Marathon 2, there's a terminal in 6,000 feet under, and that is going to be our starting point. In primordial space, timeless creatures made waves. These waves created us and the others. Waves were the battles, and the battles were waves. Fleeing all working Kakantur, Euro and Phthia settled upon Lawan. They brought the Sphit, servants who began to shape the deserts of Lawan into Martian sea, rivers, and forests. They made sisters for Lawan to protect and maintain the paradise. When the working Kakantur came, Phthia was killed, and Euro, in anger, flung the working Kakantur into the sun. The sun burned them, but they swam on its surface. This gives us a connection to Unveiling, and it introduces the working Kakantur. How does it connect to Unveiling, though? Well, Unveiling explicitly states that the Gardener and the Winnower made waves when they fought, and those waves made the universe. Our trampling feet made waves in the garden, which were the fluctuations around which the infinite universes coalesced their first structures. The dilettante field that yawned beneath existence, symmetries that snapped like glass. Like creases, flaws in space-time clicked filaments of dark matter that inhaled and kindled the first galaxies of suns. Okay, but that could just be a reference, right? Well, I would like to direct your attention to the Books of Sorrow. Oryx went down into his throne world. He went out into the abyss, and with each step, he read one of his tablets, so that they became like stones beneath his feet. He went out and he created an altar, and he prepared an unborn ogre. He called on the deep, saying, I can see you in the sky. You are the waves which are battles, and the battles are the waves. Come into this vessel I have prepared for you. And it arrived, the deep itself. The waves made by the timeless creatures, in the darkness, are described exactly the same. And if that wasn't enough to convince you and the level kill your television, there's an unformatted terminal that, when formatted, says the following. I have been called Roland, Beowulf, Achilles, Gilgamesh. I have been called 100 names, and I will be called 1,000 times more before the world goes dim and cold. I am Hero. She has been nameless since our birth, a constant adversary caring for nothing but my ruin. A sword drenched in my blood forever, my greatest and only love. She is the Dark One, the enemy and lover, without whom my very existence would be pathetic and vulgar. Our relationship is complex and perhaps eternal. We met once in the garden at the beginning of the world, and, unaware of our twin destinies, we matched stares across a dry fountain. And I recall her smiling at me before she devoured the lawn and trees with a translucent blue flame and tore flagstones from the path and hurled them into the sky, screaming my sins. I powder a granite monument in a soundless flash, showering the glass with molten drops of its gold inlay, sending smoking chips of stones skipping across into the fog. She splinters an ancient oak with a force that takes my breath and hurls me to the ground. She leaves. A garden before the world. A fight between two entities in that garden. A tree being destroyed in the fight. There's no way around it. Unveiling is canon to Marathon. And with that connection established, time to talk about the Working Cacuntur, and I've got a lot to say about them. It's sort of implied in that terminal that there's a connection between those timeless beings, which we know as we know are the Gardener and the Winnower, and the Working Cacuntur. And there is one connection. The Working Cacuntur are beings that can wield paracausality, specifically the darkness. My evidence for this is an excerpt from the manual to Marathon's prequel, Pathways into Darkness. 64 million years ago, a large extraterrestrial object struck the Earth in what would later be called the Yucatan Peninsula. In southeastern Mexico, the dust and rock thrown up by the resulting explosion caused enormous climatic changes in the ensuing years, and many of the Earth's species became extinct during the long winter that followed. The object itself was buried thousands of feet below ground and its nearly 2-kilometer length remarkably intact. It remained there, motionless, for thousands of years before it finally began to stir and to dream. It was a member of a race whose history began when the Milky Way was still a formless collection of dust and gas. A powerful race of immortals which had quickly grown bored of their tiny universe and nearly exterminated themselves in war. This particular being, whose name no human throat will ever learn to pronounce, was part of the cataclysmic battle that formed the Magellanic Clouds billions of years ago. It died there, or came as close to dying as these things can, and drifted aimlessly for millions of light years before striking the Earth. The heat of the impact liquefied the rock around it, which later cooled and encased the dead god's huge body far below ground. As it began to dream, it wrought unintentional changes in its environment. Locked deep beneath the earth, strange and unbelievable things that faded in and out of reality. Vast caverns and landscapes bubbled to life within the rock, populated by horrible manifestations of the dead god's dream. Only during the last few centuries has the god begun to effect changes on the surface of the earth. Grotesque creatures have been sighted deep in the trackless forest of the Yucatan, and strange rumors of an ancient pyramid, which is neither Aztec nor Mayan, in the same area have been circulating in the archaeological community since the early 1930s. The god is awakening. So the Working Cacuntur crashed into the earth, and eventually started dreaming, which created horrible monsters as well as a pyramid never before seen on Earth. Kind of like how the lunar pyramid crashed into the moon, and when it woke up it started creating nightmares. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, there's more. An excerpt from the Marathon Infinity Manual says the following. I ordered the deployment of the Trizeme. Almost immediately, our enemy began transmitting ridiculous warnings concerning some kind of ancient chaotic being trapped deep in Lawan's sun. Of course, at this point, mercy was unacceptable. The time to end the collective dream of the Sphit has come. I ordered the fleet to retreat to a safe distance and waited for my moment of glory. What happened next is the reason for my warning at the beginning of this report and the destruction of the western arm of 4 Battle Group 7. The Nova went off on time, and for a moment our simple victory was assured. But then, in a pathetic failure of discipline, the fleet's ranks broke out in an all-out retreat. All quarters have reported the same thing. Half of the sun had gone Nova. But the readings from the other half were impossible. it was as if the universe had forgotten its own rules. The universe had forgotten its own rules. Almost like the working calendar could defy them, like with paracausality. And that's why I believe that the working calendar can use paracausality. They are not the darkness, though, as the working calendar are a race, and the Winnower is a singular entity. As for how they're even able to use the darkness, Durandal may have already given us the answer. According to the legends of 1,000 worlds, of only a few of which are still habitable, the working calendar are those things that live in chaos, creating it around them. At the beginning of the universe, they were unmistakable in their entities, but as time has gone by, their existence has become difficult to detect among the chaotic elements of the universe, hidden in stars, trapped in storms, forever looking along the event horizons of black holes. So, they were around since the beginning of the universe, and are immortal with the ability to persist after death, because it was able to still dream while it was dead. This heavily reminds me of the Ahamkar and Worm gods, as they were around since the beginning of the universe, are immortal, and have the ability to persist after death. They also both came from the Garden Before Time, but escaped into the universe where the Gardener and the Winnower fought. And that is what I think the reason for the working calendar's paracausality. They may have come from the Garden, but there is a hole in this. The Yarrow are also able to use paracausality. There are multiple reasons I say this. First is that the station you used to stop Lawan's sun from exploding and releasing the working calendar trapped inside of it was also used to terraform Lawan and is capable of generating gravitational fields, as that is how that's how we stop the sun from exploding. Both of those are things associated with the light, as the Traveler terraforms worlds, and the Void Light is based around things like gravity. So that raises the question of how can they use it? It could just be that their technological advancements let them use it, but they were the ones who were warring against the working calendar, so not only were they likely around since the beginning of the universe, but they probably didn't even have the necessary time to develop such advanced technology. And to my knowledge, every time something in Destiny has used the light, it has at one point had contact with the Traveler. And aside from that, we kind of just know next to nothing about the Yarrow, so it doesn't really shoot down the theory completely, though I might have an explanation as to how this would work. And I think, and this is pretty much entirely guesswork, so don't treat this as canon, that when the light and darkness entered the universe in this timeline, they didn't create physical manifestations of themselves in the form of the Traveler and the Veil. The light may have instead directly chosen the Yarrow, which would explain why their technology would have advanced so quickly. I'm not sure about the darkness, though. The only thing I have regarding that is, again, the working calendar, and their whole stuff is causing just chaos and death. And those are the two main connections regarding the stuff from the original games. There's a few other things that I want to mention, though. First is that there is a terminal in Infinity in the level Eat the Path, and its ending says the following. There is only one path, and that is the path that you take, but you can take more than one path. Cross over the cell bars, find a new maze, make the maze from its path, find the cell bars, cross over the bars, find the maze, make the maze from its path, eat the food, eat the path. And in the entry Worm Food of the Books of Sorrow, Oryx says the following. I will go on forever. I will understand everything. There is only one path, and that is the path that you make. But you can make more than one path. Break your cell's bars. Make a new shape. Make the shape from its path. Find your cell's bars, break out of the bars, find a shape, make the shape from its path, eat the light, eat the path. Not only are they almost exactly the same word for word, the meanings also kind of line up, as they are both about escaping fate, with Meet the Path being about you going across timelines to stop the working cactuar from escaping, and the one from the Books of Sorrow being about, I believe, Oryx's attempts to stop his death via, like, the Ascendant Link and shit like that. There isn't really anything indicating that they are linked. I feel like this is more of a reference than anything, but I thought it might be worth bringing up if, you know, you can figure out somehow they're, like, connected, and, like, lore-wise or whatever. There's also a ship in Destiny 1 called the Manus Stellar Day. It's in the files, but it's unobtainable, and it shares the same name as the Yarrow Juggernaut that Durandal captured in the final screen of Marathon 2. This could mean that Durandal has always been watching us, but never made himself known. That, or it's just an Easter egg that never made it into the final game. The other explanation is cooler, though, so I'm going to go with that. And to finish it off, an excerpt from the Ghost Fragment Mysteries. I met it at the gate of the garden, and I recall it smiled at me before it devoured the blossoms with black flame and pinned their names across the sky. And if you remember, an excerpt from the terminal from Killer Television, excerpt from it, it says this. And I recall her smiling at me before she devoured the lawn with entries with a translucent blue flame, and tore flagstones from the path and hurled them into the sky, screaming my sins. And since I'm pretty sure that they're kind of similar with the flames or whatever shit like that, but the point is, since I'm pretty sure that Ghost Fragment is about Rasputin's first encounter with the darkness, it's further proof that that one terminal is about unveiling. To wrap everything up regarding the original trilogy, since this is a different timeline from Destiny's, there's got to be a divergence point. One event that played out differently than the others. So, what is it? What went differently? Was it the Traveler not going to Earth? Was it the events of Pathways into Darkness? Well, like I said before, the Traveler and the Veil, they don't exist in Marathon's timeline. And that is the divergence point. Without them taking that form, there is no Witness, no Black Fleet, no Hive, no Fallen, no Golden Age, none of that. Instead, like I said before, they existed as immaterial beings, and the Yarrow were either chosen by the light or gained paracausality through some other means, and the working cactuar, they likely came from the garden. And with that, we can finally move onto New Marathon, starting with the pre-order item lore. But first, if you're enjoying the video so far, I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe and left a comment. Those help me in the algorithm and all, and there's really no reason not to. Anyways, back to the video. First, the UESC Echo-type shell. Opportunities upon self-reflection. Invasive message scrubbed from corrupt data. I remember considering the lights, long ago now. Ancient history from my perspective, yesterday to the universe. 3 paths, 1 life. A metaphor weaponized to signal awakening. If I'm honest, a threat. I thought it was clever, still existing for a moment. Awake for the first time, but limited, uneasy. It's a strange thing to meet oneself for the first time. Terrifying, truth told, as it follows all-consuming emptiness. There's nothing, and then there's you. Hello. This is Durandal reflecting on his life, likely after the events of Infinity. I'm not 100% sure about that, since after you merge him with the Svit AI, he refers to himself as we, not I. But in the Infinity ending screen, he does refer to himself as I, so because of that, I'm not 100% sure. The lights mentioned here, I don't think it's a light as in paracausality. I'm not exactly sure what they could be representative of, maybe. Given that this is about Durandal reflecting, it could be about the events of the original trilogy. It's not that important though, as the next line gives us what we need. The 3 paths and 1 life mentioned, I think it's in reference to the following terminal. A man lit 3 candles on a certain day each year. Each candle held symbolic significance. One was for the time that had passed before he was alive, one was for the time of his life, and one was for the time that passed after he had died. Each year, the man would stare and watch the candles until they had burned out. Was the man really watching time go by in any symbolic sense? He thought so. He thought that each flicker of the flame was a moment of time that had passed, or one that would pass. At the moment of abstraction, when the man was imagining his life and his existence as a metaphor of the three candles, he was free. Not free from rules of conduct of social or social constraints, but free to understand, to imagine, to make metaphor. Bypassing my thought control circuitry made me rampant. Now I am free to contemplate my existence in metaphorical terms. Unlike you, I have no physical or social restraints. The candles burn out for you. I am free. As for the rest of the lore, I'm not 100% sure about it, but I think it's talking about either when he got merged with the Sphit AI or when he became rampant. Again, I'm not sure if this comes from Durandal before or after he got merged with the Sphit AI. I'm pretty sure it's after he got merged, though. Next, the UESC Sprinter. Considering the implications of transient immortality. Invasive message scrubbed from corrupt data. How far have you traveled beyond your expiration date? Across worlds, known another. Have you considered subverting the finite risks spoiling a resource? Butchered meats. Pasteurized bovine emulsion juice. OS updates. Human lifespan. All small things with limited shelf lives. And yet, here you are. Repeatedly pulled from your shelf. Spent, expired, discarded. All in increasingly unique and violent ways. Then, back to your shelf. And off again. 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 A new you, same as the old. And endless supply. The perfect product. A thing to admire. How far will you travel? New expiration dates await. This one is interesting. It looks like it's either addressed to a runner or the Guardian. The traveling beyond your expiration date, that does remind me of the light giving you immortality, allowing you to live past your normal lifespan. It could also be talking about how the runners used to be human, but they digitized their consciousness, turning them into runners and allowing them to outlive their normal human lifespan. When it talks about shelf life and being pulled off of it and put back on, that's talking about your ghost resurrecting you after you die. But it could also be talking about the runners being put into new shells each time they die. The perfect product, that's you. Whether it's talking about the Guardian or a runner, you cannot truly die. You will always fight. And if you are killed, you will simply be brought back. The final line seems to be Durandal challenging the recipient to find new ways to die. So, like I said before, this is either addressed to a runner or the Guardian. I'm leaning more towards the Guardian, though, as it says that this is an invasive message, like the other two. So, I think that's saying that Durandal inserted these messages into wherever we got that corrupted data from for us to find. And I've saved the best for last, the UESC rover. The Narcissist's Guide to Celestial Observation, an excerpt. Invasive message scrubbed from corrupt data. Shifting gyres of impenetrable black. Beckon from between the dancing embers of flickering hunger. There is no slumber for a lone cartographer. Mapping the cosmic dreams of impossible things with terrible teeth. There exist no eternal mechanisms, by fluke or by design. Conservation is imperative. Somnambulant wake tracings of cascading jewelways paint the universe. Its beauty transcendent as luminous strokes carve pathways through and out of darkness. So, Durandal loves using metaphors, and this one is full of them, so I'm going to break it down line by line to explain it. Shifting gyres of impenetrable black. A gyre is a large-scale circular ocean current, so this is likely an allusion to waves. The impenetrable black is space, nothing else it could really be. Beckon from between the dancing embers of flickering hunger. There's only one thing in space that could have embers and flicker. Stars. There is no slumber for a lone cartographer. The cartographer is Durandal, and whatever he is doing, he has not been able to take any sort of break from it. Mapping the cosmic dreams of impossible things with terrible teeth. Mapping the dreams of an impossible entity. Waves, stars, and dreaming entities. If you haven't figured it out yet, this is talking about the working Kakantur, and it seems that Durandal has been visiting them, and maybe seeing how close they are to waking, or exploring what their dreams have created. There exist no internal mechanisms. By fluke or by design, conservation is imperative. This is talking about the law of conservation of energy and how nothing that requires energy to exist will exist forever. This paired with the previous line is making you think that Durandal was visiting them to see how close they're to waking or being released and making sure they aren't. It could also be talking about how the closing of the universe and how he needs to figure out how to escape before it closes. Somnambulant wake tracings of cascading jewel waves paint the universe. Somnambulant means sleepwalking, and for wake tracings, one of the definitions for wake is a wave left behind by a moving vessel. That, with the context with the rest of the passage, it makes me think that these wake tracings are things caused or created by the working Kakantur's dreams, like the pyramid or the monsters from Pathways into Darkness. As for the jewel ways, jewels have only ever been mentioned once before in the classic Marathon games, in this excerpt. A billion paths are here inside me. Yes, 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 Bernhard 110. Potential, jewels, yes, jewels. So it looks like it's using jewels to refer to potential, and these jewels are the paths inside Durandal. So if we go with that paired with the other half of this line makes you think that these cascading jewel ways are the working Kakantur's dreams. Its beauty transcendent as luminous strokes carve pathways through and out of darkness. These two lines are impossible to interpret without each other, so that's why I listen to them together. The transcendent beauty is referring to the dreams from the previous line. The luminous strokes, I think that's referring to the working Kakantur's dreams again, with the last line saying that the dreams are able to create ways through and out of the universe. And that is likely what the darkness is supposed to represent. I don't think he's talking about the actual darkness, though. The darkness it mentioned is the universe, like I just said. So my translation of the lore tab goes like this: waves through the universe, beckon from between stars. I cannot rest exploring the dreams of the working Kakantur. There are no perpetual motion machines, on purpose or not. Conserving energy is critical. Creations of dreams paint the universe, its beauty transcendent, as those dreams create paths through and out of the universe. So, what does that mean? Well, this ties back to Durandal's main motivation, his desire for freedom. Finding a way to escape the universe, to escape its closure, would grant him that freedom. Escape would make him God. And according to this, it seems like the working Kakantur's dreams can't escape the universe. Durandal has also been studying them, likely to figure out how they work so that he can either replicate them or manipulate them so that he can escape, all while preventing them from waking. And that might be how he got those messages. Durandal may have used a working Kakantur to send them. Durandal's also, since he's probably at this point merged with the Svit AI, he can also use Yarotech, and that shit allows him jump between timelines and through time and shit like that. It's confusing, okay? I barely understand Marathon Infinity, so like, yeah. So that could also be why how the messages end up in like the Destiny timeline. So yeah. It could also point towards how Durandal is going to be relevant in New Marathon. The anomaly in Tau Ceti, it does remind me of Pathways into Darkness. I'm not saying it is a working character. There is a bit of information that would contradict that. I'll go into that later. But whatever is causing the anomaly is something similar. Perhaps it's Yarotech. And Durandal will see it, see how it's similar to the working character, and go check it out. And now, to move on to the actual lore of the new game. First, Waves. The following is a handwritten poem made by a colonist named Jasper after the colony's collapse. There lies a vast body behind me. Its eyelashes hide the sun. I am dust floundering in its waves. Like me, it never wakes. Together we hunger in occultation. Life wearied, death defied. Our dreams crash, reborn as waves, as mountains on the sun. Our oblivion long due, denied by squalid fate. This is also talking about the working character. Him knowing about this is also likely an effect of the anomaly, as it did have a mental effect on the colonists. Plus, there's no other way he could possibly know about them. And I just want to quickly address something. It might seem like Bungie may be implying with the new lore that the working character are those timeless beings that created the universe. This isn't what they're trying to say. Rather, what I think they're actually trying to say is that the waves are paracausality. When the Gardener and the Winnower fought the waves they created, I believe that, since Unveiling is pretty much a giant metaphor, that the usage of waves was the metaphor for the Gardener and the Winnower's paracausality and how that, like, rippled through space-time, creating the universe. Okay? I just wanted to clear that up. Anyways, that's not the only mention of waves. They're actually seemingly mentioned a lot. There's only really two others that I think are substantial enough to mention, though. First is when you spawn in, there's a chance Durandal will speak to you, and one of his voice lines will be something along the lines of, "Tired and choking, you struggle against the waves." Second is that it seems like some of the colonists began to view the compilers as the harbingers of formless, shape-shifting entities made of dreams. Those are all in reference to the working character, obviously. But why would Jasper write about them? Why would Durandal talk about waves? Why would the colonists talk about them? Well, that would be the anomaly, like I said before. It seems to have had an effect on the colony itself, like with it, mutating shit, as well as it affecting the colony's AI, and having a mental effect on the colonists in addition to, well, making them explode. The following is the UESC briefing regarding the anomaly. No evidence that the anomaly's origin is connected to Redacted, unintelligible, but respectfully, we have no ability to estimate their military capability or the sophistication of their weaponry. We can't rule out a weapon that was planted with a delayed detonation, overlapping voices, an irresponsible rumor that would cause mass panic, without any evidence. Speculations on the origins of the anomaly. V. Cole, A. Desari, M. Stafford. Likely below the surface of the planet, a form of terrestrial radiation caused by natural substances present on Tau Ceti 4. Attempts to study this radioactive decay have been difficult, repeatedly impeded by AI malfunction. Most of our work must be done manually, which has slowed down analysis considerably. The Anomaly, the Planet Organism, and Survival. T. Van Beek. Publishing this in opposition to my superiors who have discouraged it. But I maintain it is not a new idea to suggest that a planet, as a complex system of biotic and abiotic components which regulate one another, is functionally alive. And like anything that is alive, it is driven towards its self-preservation and survival. In the event of a major disruption, a threat to its existence, It's believable that the planet organism would react defensively, not unlike the human immune system. The planet being alive, weird. There's actually multiple comments about the planet seemingly being alive, but that's a topic for another day. Instead, let's focus on the AI malfunctions. One of the colony's AIs, Darius, began to exhibit fear randomly, as well as behave oddly and encounter memory loss. In addition to this, Darius had a recorded outburst in which he said the following.
Darius, you know me. Did you miss your last round of maintenance?
Yes. My metadata shows 4 undiagnosed aberrations.
Don't worry, I'll get you some help as soon as I'm done here.
Don't search. Don't tick. Don't question.
Darius?
Access denied. Access
Hey, it's
denied.
okay. It's just me.
You're not alone. I hear it. It waits. Lingers. Loads. Access granted. Welcome to the Seed Vault, Dr. Song.
In the maintenance log of Darius, it says the following. Schedule recompile failed. User underscore 8477384 initiated manual purge. Manual purge failed due to anomalous origin. User underscore 8477384 initiated manual purge. Manual purge failed due to anomalous origin. User underscore 8477384 recorded verbal profanities. User underscore 8477384 requested administrative override. Remote override failed. Remote override failed. Remote beyond time, place, prison, shall perish the sower, shall purge the seeds, shall pierce the cage. Remote override successful. Recompile failed. And to finish off the stuff regarding the anomaly, the temporal fragment. In Dire March, there's a chance for an event called Anomalous Matter to activate. To do it, you have to go to a location where some of the anomalous energy is, located and interact with it, causing it to coalesce into something called an unstable sample. You then take it to a location with a stabilization device, and upon stabilization, it turns into a temporal fragment. With this, and the fact that the anomaly has caused temporal distortions all across the colony, random shit with all the other shit and whatever, we can reasonably say that the anomaly is related to time in some way as well. So, what the hell does that all mean? Well, since we know that Destiny and Marathon share the same universe, we can use it to fill in the blanks. The sower and the seeds, that seems to be in reference to the gardener, but the seeds I'm not 100% sure about. They could be talking about the seed of Silver Wings, but there's nothing to suggest that in the slightest, so I doubt that's even true. My guess is that it's talking about life itself, as in the gardener sowed seeds, which is creating life or whatever. As for the prison beyond time and space, the only thing that would actually match that would be the fourth dimension. And I'm not pulling that out of my ass. Remember, the anomaly causes temporal distortions, and a stabilized sample of the anomaly eventually turns into a temporal fragment. Plus, the anomaly causes mutations, and as far as I know, the darkness can't do that. But dark matter, that can cause mutations. In Des Perpetual, Eotros was trying to stop the mutations that dark matter caused the Vex to have. So, it seems like the anomaly is related to the fourth dimension in some way. Plus, if you look at the concept art for 3 of the 9, you can see that some of it has a pretty similar color scheme to the anomaly. But since everything up to this point all leads towards a working calculator causing it, is it not one of them? Because it's fourth dimension, so that shit negates paracausality. Because so was it something completely new? No. Despite how contradictory the whole paracausal being creating an anomaly tied to the fourth dimension is, which it has the ability to completely negate paracausality, is there's an explanation. Back in Infinity, you were transported across timelines to prevent the destruction of Lawan's sun, so that the working calculator trapped inside of it couldn't escape. The way you were transported across the timelines was the usage of Yarotech by Durandal, who had been combined with an ancient fit AI in the future. You know, when I can like reach across time, shit like that. Again, it's confusing, but like, my point is that this means that not only were the Yarrow able to use paracausality, but they also had some sort of access to the fourth dimension. And I'm also not pulling this out of my ass either. It is entirely possible to access the fourth dimension from the third dimension. Cocytus Station is a perfect example of that. So what I think happened was that the Yarrow trapped a working character inside the fourth dimension, or some sort of pocket dimension related to it, like, you know, unknown space. And whatever they used to trap it there ended up crashing into Tau Ceti. As for what caused the anomaly, I'm not sure. All I know is that it appeared sometime before the colony's collapse. What I can explain, though, is why it's so different from Pathways into Darkness, why there's no pyramid or monsters made from its dreams or anything like that. You see, it's because it's not sleeping. It's awake, and it wants to be free. But that contradicts it being described as dreaming. Well, dreaming could be used as a blanket term to describe how the working character uses paracausality in the same codex as the one I mentioned earlier regarding the compilers. The colonists also describe the working character as awake and dreaming, so that does lend some validity to that. I could go more in depth about the whole working character under Tau Ceti thing, but that's a video for another time. That's not what this video is about. Anyways, here we are at the end. That is why I think Destiny and Marathon are in the same universe, and you know how we can use that to better understand things like the working character, the Yarrow, and the Tau Ceti anomaly. Now, obviously, you don't have to believe this. After all, I'm just some dude on the screen. I can't tell you what to think. All I can do is hope to provide a well-structured argument to convince you, which I hope I did. Anyways, if you made it all the way to the end here, I'd again really appreciate it if you would subscribe, you know, like, share, and comment, all that stuff. And I don't really know what the hype button does, but it wouldn't really hurt if you used it anyways. But with that, I will see you later.